We're doing it, guys. Another episode. We're back. We keep coming back. Nobody knows why, but we're back again. Episode 101. You know, it's good to be here. Welcome to the weekly daily podcast. We got a lot of interesting stuff going on this week. It's been cold. I feel like a lot of these episodes out with saying, here's a little weather update. But what I will tell you is that it's colder than it usually is. It is currently 9 degrees, which is about the high for today. It was like -2, -3. I think tomorrow it's getting down to maybe colder than that. So it's been an interesting last couple of days. This whole weekend, we got snow, we got freezing temperatures. Not my favorite. I will say it is nice to kind of say, all right, can't go outside really, or shouldn't go outside. So I'm going to just chill. Got a lot of documentaries knocked out over the weekend. That was good. But it's one of those, every time it gets like super cold, the apartment management, whatever, they always send that email. They're like, oh my gosh, run all the water. Don't, let the pipes burst, which, to be fair to them, a lot of property management gets a little paranoid about some stuff that may be over the top. But actually, now that I say that out loud, I used to work in property management. And there were a lot of dumb people. So probably is good to send out an email for every little thing. But I have seen pipes burst, and it is not fun. It's no good. So I've been running the water the past couple of days, which, it can be tough to remember. We're trained, to save the water, cut the faucets on and off as quickly as possible. Don't waste Mother Nature, okay? And I'll tell you what, the water is the one utility that's free here, and so I've been letting those sinks drip, pretty good. But knock on wood, no burst pipes here. Been trying to stay on top of that. One of my buddies, friend of the pod, Ethan Everhart, he said his pipes burst. I haven't gotten a chance to ask about the details of it, but sounds like old Ethan forgot to run the drips. He didn't know about the drips. He's a Midwest boy, Iowa. I figured he'd know about the drips. It's not Florida, but I don't even know. It might not even be his apartment. It might have been like people around him and it affected him. I don't know to what extent it affected him, but I do feel like I have a little bit of PTSD when it comes to pipes potentially bursting from cold weather, because when I worked at that apartment complex in a management role, in like a property management role, the building, the first year that it was like a brand new building, like 2013, 14, 15 timeframe. And it was literally a brand new building. It was cold that winter in Virginia. The pipes burst, and literally and I guess this wasn't even when I was there. This was the summer. I got there the summer after this happened. But that was like the talk. Everybody, the maintenance team, the management team, apparently it was a nightmare for everybody because they had to deal with it the whole time. But I think like once a week, pipes were bursting. And that was like automatically triggering the fire alarm, which then made everybody have to evacuate the apartment building. So it would be like 2 a.m., 5 degrees outside, and these people who are paying a lot of money to be in a quote-unquote luxury apartment complex are having to go outside for an hour while stuff gets dealt with. So that, I'm glad I didn't work then. But that has always stuck with me, and I get a little... It's not even paranoid. It's just one of those things where a lot of times you get warned about like, don't do this or don't do that or whatever the case is. And a lot of times it's like, it's very unlikely that scenario is going to play out. But when it comes to the pipes bursting, I think it's, if you don't do your due diligence and it's super cold, it's like, yeah, dude, it's pipes burst. Okay. Which is kind of wild that we're in like 2025 and we're like, you know what? A lot of pipes. Not real good. Pipes are pretty good if it's like a perfect temperature, but like if you get a little weird on the temperature, the pipes don't like that. It's like, what? I mean, do we have material that can deal with frozen water? I don't understand materials, but it does feel like we should figure that problem out. Get pipes a little more consistent out there, a little stronger. But what do I know? I'm not a plumber. I don't know anything. Actually, I've unclogged toilets. I've cut the water supply off. There's a little knob. I've picked up the back portion of the toilet to fiddle with that stopper if the toilet's draining. That's the extent of my plumber experience, which, you know what, to be fair to myself, probably better than most. I don't know that for certain, but I did, and I still do rent out a townhouse that I got. Excuse me, I got the burps. I have a townhouse in Lynchburg that I rent out. I think I've talked about it before. It's whenever I tell people that, I think people are like, "Whoa, dude, must be nice coming from money or whatever." It's like, no, it was a very inexpensive townhouse. I grew up in a very inexpensive town, and I am not in a position to buy any sort of property out here in Denver, but in Lynchburg, Virginia, when I was making $28,000 a year, I was able to purchase a townhome. But anyways, I've been renting that out, and when I rented that out, initially, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I forgot what I was talking about. Well, talking about maintenance stuff. When I rented it out initially, now it goes through a property management company, but I used to do it myself. Like I vetted or got the people, whatever the process is to get the people in to rent, and then I was like the point of contact if anything happened. And I realized during that time that people have no concept of how to fix anything. And a big one was the garbage disposal. They'd be like, "Oh my gosh, it's broken." And like, I don't know how to fix a garbage disposal. All I know is there's a reset button on the garbage disposal, and 9 out of 10 times touching that solves the problem. And so yeah, that's I figured that out. Yeah, let me check something real quick. I feel like I may have gotten a call. Give me just a second. All right, we're back. We're back, baby. I saw on my computer, just got a text. I wanted to make sure a call didn't come through. Because I've had my alarm go off before while recording the pod, and when the alarm goes off, it cuts the video off. And I was like, if a call came through, would that also cut the video off? And then I wouldn't have a video for this, and there'd be like 6 people that would be a little bummed out. So anyways, it's been cold. That's what I'm trying to say. It's been cold. I've stayed home and watched a bunch of docs. Watched a bunch of good documentaries. What did I see? I wrote them down because I can never remember names, but I saw The Program. Pretty good. It's an alien documentary. It's about the behind-the-scenes kind of hidden program about the government looking into UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. Is it nom or nah? Phenomenon. That's the name of the episode, Phenom-e-nom. So The Program, James Fox film, very interesting, detailed like the congressional hearings a couple years ago. Very interesting. I've talked about it. I won't elaborate on it because nobody apparently cares about aliens other than myself, but enjoyed that documentary quite a bit. Saw The Lost Children, which was a wild documentary about 4 Colombian children who were involved in a plane crash with their mother. Their mother, and I assume the pilot and maybe a couple others, passed away. These 4 children in the middle of like the jungle, the rainforest. 4 children aged like 13, 8, 4, and 11 months. They were in a plane crash. Where people died and they survived. And then they were lost in the jungle for the next 40 days. And they were found alive. I mean, they were very close to death, but it's pretty crazy. And the way that they were found was, I mean, this is at least the way that it was explained, but basically they had gone 39 days, or, when they decided to do this, maybe 37 days or something like that. And the military basically had like backed out at that point. They're like, hey, we can't find them. We got to back out. We don't have the resources. And there was a handful of indigenous people that were like familiar with just the jungle more so than the military. So they had volunteered to help out. And they took ayahuasca, which if you're not familiar with that, it's like a hallucinogenic drug from the Amazon. A lot of people take it to like reset or whatever. It's apparently a very powerful drug that has beneficial aspects to it, so people say. Anyways, it's they call it like when I guess from what I've heard a lot of people talk about it where they take it and it's like a root. You like mix a root thing with something else and that's ayahuasca. But it apparently like connects you with, I don't know. It like takes you through a process apparently where you are able to go through your past traumas and like deal with stuff. And they say that you're basically guided through this experience by what they call Mother Earth. And that's basically the drug. Ayahuasca like shows you the way. It protects you. It's kind of I don't know if I fully get it, but it's an interesting thing that people describe. And basically these indigenous people took ayahuasca, this one, I guess one guy specifically, and he came out of his experience and they said, what did you find? Were you able to get any answers? And he said, we're going to find the children tomorrow. Like ayahuasca told me, we're going to find the children tomorrow. And they did. On day 40, they found the kid. And it was crazy too, because they said, they were like, if we don't find the kids today, we're leaving. We've been here 40 days. They're like, this is the last day. And they found the kids. And the kids were on like the verge of death. I mean, they were so close to death because they hadn't barely eaten. But they had, I mean, it was crazy. This 13-year-old who like basically was acting as a mother was like finding fruits in the jungle. She said she made a fishing rod and caught a few fish. And they just ate the fish raw because they didn't have fire. It was pretty insane, pretty interesting. But also watched, speaking of ayahuasca, also watched a documentary on friend of the pod, Ethan Everhart's favorite quarterback of all time, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers' Enigma was a little docu-series on Netflix about Aaron Rodgers. I guess just about kind of his life. I don't know. It's like a 3-part series. I didn't know a lot about Aaron Rodgers, which is interesting because I'm not a huge sports fan now, but growing up, sports is all I had. So, and I guess I say that to say that I kind of stopped being obsessed with sports around the time that Aaron Rodgers started getting big. So Brett Favre was like a huge name quarterback, a big figure during my time, kind of in the early 2000s, late 90s, when I was like super into football. And Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, I think was drafted maybe like 2005. And then he sat the bench behind Brett Favre for like 3 years before, or 3 years, 4 years, something like that. But Aaron Rodgers, he basically won a Super Bowl, I think in 2011, like in his second or third season as a starter. And, interesting personality, kind of like a introvert that's also an alpha male, quote unquote, quarterback in like the National Football League, which is like a league with the toughest dudes in it. But he, it talks about a bunch of stuff, his football career, but also he's like a very spiritual person or whatever you want to call it. Like he does ayahuasca, he does all this stuff that he talked about how it has like helped him with his personal life and helped him accept who he is. And I don't know, whatever it is, but it was interesting. He is kind of, I guess, viewed as a controversial figure somewhat. I think a lot of people hate on him. I know a lot of people hate on him. But it was interesting. It's always nice, whether you love or hate the person, seeing, usually when it's a figure that big, you're not seeing behind the scenes. You're kind of just seeing what's in the news, or like your perception of people at that level is based off of just whatever information is getting thrown at you, which is usually news, social media. It's not directly from that person. You're not seeing kind of the underlying story that's going on, or like the real thing. And it was interesting to see his side of things, and how I do think there's definitely times where he was maybe treated unfairly or under a microscope. But again, I haven't really followed him. Aaron Rodgers isn't somebody that I would say I'm a big fan of, or not a fan. He's just kind of a dude that showed up on a documentary on Netflix when it was 5 degrees outside, and I watched it. So, anyways, it's pretty cool. But he does ayahuasca in there. It was I don't know, a lot of ayahuasca this weekend. But yeah, it's been very cold. I hate the cold. I was trying to think of like, because right now the lowest it's getting is about -5, which is probably about the lowest, or equivalent to the lowest temperature that I've ever dealt with in my life. And I was trying to think, like, what are some of the coldest situations that I can ever remember in my life? And I couldn't really think of any. Because every time it's super cold, it's like, it just stay in. And it's warm in here. The heat is on. But I will say, growing up, it took me forever to learn how to layer. So I was just constantly kind of cold, due to the fact that I didn't know how to dress properly. Like literally all of college, I lived in like I don't know if you call it a mountain town, but maybe a little bit higher elevation in Virginia. And it would just, it was probably in between 20 to 35, in between 20 to 40 degrees, basically the entire winter. So definitely had a chilly season, and maybe cold, like super cold there. Maybe it would get down to like 10, 15 degrees. But I didn't know how to lay. I literally did not. Like, this is one of those things that as an adult, I'm like, I'm such an idiot. How did it take me like 25 years of my life to go, oh, I can pay $12 for a thermal long sleeve undershirt, and then I can put a hoodie over that, and then I can put a snow jacket over that. Like, I just had the clothes that I had from high school, and I'm like, well, I don't want to buy new clothes. So I would just walk around. It'd be like 20 degrees, and I'd have a t-shirt and then a hoodie over it, and I'd walk to class and go, man, it's really cold. Why do I feel so cold? And that was it. And I was probably also stupid too, where it's like, it was always like convenience. You're trying to balance convenience with comfort. So it's like, okay, it's super cold, but the walk is only a couple hundred, maybe like a 5 or 10 minute walk to my class. And in class, it's going to be really warm, and I don't want to lug a big jacket around. And so same thing with like going to parties, or going to friends, or going to intramural stuff, or whatever, going to the library. So I think I always leaned on convenience, where it's just like, yeah, but I don't want to like have to deal with that. Which is funny, because now I carry a backpack around everywhere I go, because I'm like, I'm probably going to have a jacket. And if it gets cold, I want to like make sure that my body feels like happy at all times. But yeah, I can't, like, that is a memory, just college being cold all the time. I remember going to, I think, the last Virginia Tech college football game I went to. I think I was underdressed and it was cold. And I remember thinking, why does anybody go to these? Like, why would anybody pay money, come deal with parking and traffic and this and that, to sit out and be miserable? And it's probably because I didn't have enough, or I'm sure it's because I didn't have enough layers. I was just an idiot. Other than that, I can't think of like, cold situations. Because I didn't know how to dress appropriately, running during the winter, or even not even during the winter, but if it's like 50 degrees or under. I'd just be like, all I know, like I literally thought like to run, it's just like you have to wear shorts and a short sleeve shirt. Not that you have to, but I think I just always, especially as a younger kid, I wasn't running super long distances at like a more casual pace. I was like, I would go out and I would just run as fast as I could for like 3 miles. And when you're doing that, you do warm up quite a bit. So if you have a jacket, it's like, I'm going to get hot. But now it's like, I'm not sprinting. I'm not trying to win the Olympics. I'm just trying to get 5 or 6 miles in and like not hate it. So I'll run like an appropriate, you know, 9 minute mile, 8:30 mile, whatever it is. And then also it's like, yeah, I'll wear a jacket and then a mile or two in, if I get warm, I take it off and I just tie it over my waist. Like I'm a 45-year-old with 3 kids around. I go full dad fashion, okay? Which by the way, I've kind of always had a little bit of dad fashion. People get real into this fashion. I'm like, I don't care, dude. It's like if you like my face, but the fact that I have shoes that don't match my shirt bugs you and you're like you're not a potential match, it's like good. I don't want you to judge the fact that I don't know how to match. I will concede. The tying, if I'm not running and I tie the hoodie around my waist, which I've done that in comedies. I've done that quite a bit. And I don't care, but I'll concede that one. From the outside, seeing a 36-year-old man just tie a hoodie around his waist like it's a Boy Scout knot, not a great look. I don't think women are into that, but what do I know? I don't know anything. Anyways, it's been a fun week, guys. Let's get into some of the stuff that's been going on. I had some fun shows, some fun, interesting shows. Honestly, all the shows this week were they were interesting. There was kind of an interesting element to each one of them. So I went to I'm trying to think. Did I go to a mic on Monday? I don't think I did. But I did do on Tuesday. I went to New Talent Night, which, if you're in the Denver comedy scene, you're familiar with. If you're not, it's a quote unquote new talent night at the club in Denver, Comedy Works. And every Tuesday night they have what they call New Talent Night, which is basically anybody can sign up and do it, but it takes a long time. So basically, most of the people doing it are people who are like more committed to comedy. You get some new people here and there, but you basically have to sign up online every week for like 3 or 4 months before you get up. And it's a short set. It's like 4 minutes, so it's a short set. And it used to be when I first started, like the only show, quote unquote, show that I'd be on that had a great crowd. I mean, honestly, in the beginning, it was like the only thing I did that had a crowd at all. But now, fortunately, I'm doing a bunch of shows that are fun, so it's not as big of a deal, I guess, as it used to be. But it's still a very fun show. It's a good crowd. It's good to go see your peers out there and hang out and catch up with them. But went out there, and like I said, Tuesday night, it was a smaller crowd than usual. It's the club seats probably about 300 people, but there was maybe 40 to 50 people there, which, to be fair, crowd was great. This is not me being like, oh, there's only like, the crowd is always great there. And even if it is like 40 or 50 people, like it was a great crowd. They were on board. So the host goes up and I think it was his first time hosting there. He goes up and then brings up the first comic after him. And then I was the second comic. And it was kind of funny because the host, I didn't hear his host set, but I guess he like didn't or forgot to like mention the do's and don'ts of the show. Like, hey, here's what new talent night is. Like, here's what you can expect if this happens. Blah blah blah. Whatever the case is. Um, so I guess he forgot to do that during his host set. So he brings up the first comic, and then after the first comic finishes, when he goes to bring me up, he goes, before I bring up your next comic, here's what the rules are. Which I mean, it's funny, especially the more I host now. It's like it's easy to look at other hosts, or whether it's just other comics, and it's like it's easy to judge, but also like I've been there. It's very easy to get up there and just be like, what am I supposed to say? And then you just like go into your jokes and just like forget to say certain announcements. So I totally get it. But I go up after, and like I said, the crowd was it was very early in the show, but the crowd was on board. I started out, I did my joke about food allergies. That goes well. I do this new joke about it's a clean podcast, but about poo poo in bed. That goes very well. And then I close the set out on this alien joke I have, which the first two jokes did well, and then the alien joke didn't do great. I mean, I know it's not like an incredible joke, but I'm just trying to do kind of some newer stuff I haven't done at Comedy Works. And you can tell that like it's not as good of a joke, and it was probably like jarring to go from the topics that I was doing to aliens. It's kind of just like a weird pivot, but it's like a 4-minute set, so you can it's hard to like transition. I'm just like, all right, here's this story, and then I'm like, we're gonna talk about aliens. But the joke, it was kind of like doing whatever, and then like kind of the final punchline I get to, and the punchline is basically me saying, talking about aliens probing people, watching a documentary on that, and saying how that would be funny if that was actually happening. Like you wake up from a you just like wake up and you're getting probed and you're freaking out. There's like an alien in front of you, and then an alien walks in the room and he's just like, blood work looks good. And that usually gets a pretty decent laugh, but I like stuttered. My throat literally closed down as I was saying blood work looks good, and I said blood, but, and then I just like stammered, and then I go to say it again just to like say, it'd be like blood work looks good, which obviously gets no laughter. So I just look at a lady in the crowd and I said, that probably would have gone better if I didn't flub it, huh? And that got an okay laugh. And then I tried to do like the final sentence or two, which is kind of like a tag to the blood work looks good joke. And I mean, the momentum hit was killed. So I went off like a wounded animal, which I listened back and people told me, they're like, oh, it was fine. You like recovered well. But it is one of those things where you're like, ugh, you get 4 minutes once every 3 months. And you just like, well, I tripped over the final word. Oh, well. But it's bound to happen. It's happened before. It'll happen again. I think what is good out of that, and by the way, it was fine. Like it wasn't a big deal. It's easy to get in your head and be self-critical. But I will say the positive out of it is the fact that like everything that we're doing, we're learning and growing based off of the situations that we find ourselves in. So I've been in a ton of situations, but you still find yourself in new situations. And by being in those new situations, whether you do good or not, it allows you to learn and do better moving forward. So it's nice to kind of trip over something, which I've done before. But to trip over it kind of is the final thing before I'm like leaving stage. I don't know that that's necessarily happened when it's like a decent crowd, or certainly not at like a club. But you go, look, all you can do is just kind of be like, all right, I acknowledged it, stammered over that. That was a big closer. See you guys later. And just be comfortable in the flub. it's what really makes, and this happened all the time when I was new, but as you gain experience, it goes from, hey, if you flub something and then your brain just like explodes in front of you and you're like, I don't know what to say. I have only memorized the words in the joke. I do not know how to be a real person now and go, I didn't mean to say that. And so you just short circuit and you're like, you go full electric chair in front of a big crowd. So it was good to just be able to like flub something, but be like, that probably would have been better if I didn't do that, and be like, all right, that was the big closer. See you guys later. So yeah, just putting yourself and being in a million different scenarios just helps you learn and grow. So you don't want that to happen, but it's gonna happen, and you just try to do your best with it and learn for next time, which again, next time hopefully my throat doesn't close up, but it seems to like doing that for whatever reason. So we'll figure it out. But that was on Tuesday. I went to a couple mics on Wednesday, working through some new jokes, trying to do this new joke about getting locked in a bathroom. I think I've talked about that, which another good buddy, very funny comedian, Jeremy Cash, him and I met up, and we're trying to form this story. I'm trying to form this story out. He's trying to form a story out. We're going to, I think, meet on Wednesday and talk them out. So hopefully I'm able to do that. I'm making some progress, but it can be tough. It can be tough sometimes. But anyways, went to a couple mics on Wednesday and was trying to work out that story. Then Thursday, what did I do on Thursday? I went out to a mic on Thursday, but I signed up 30th on the list, and I did not want to wait for 3 hours, so I went home and played Fortnite. And you know what? That was pretty fun. But let's get into the shows over the weekend, man. Like I said, I did a Don't Tell show Friday and Saturday. I hosted both nights. By the way, if you're watching this video, I've noticed that I've got my arms on the desk and it's making the mic kind of shake a little bit. And if you've been watching and that's annoying, I'm sorry. I'll try to cut it out. But yeah, did a Don't Tell show on Friday and Saturday. Friday, the snow started. It kind of started as I was driving to the show. Wasn't a big deal on the drive there. And then it was pretty terrible after the show. But the show was at like an adventure motorcycle spot in Rhino area of, was it in Rhino? Yeah, in Rhino area of downtown Denver, which is, yeah, just a section of downtown, kind of a hop-in place. The parking was terrible. It was yeah, that was a bit of a mess. But it was a very fun show. It was, I think, like 50 or 60 tickets sold, and a cool little space, like I said, in a motorcycle adventure type store. And the staff there, they were super nice. One of the comics on the show actually works part-time there. So it was like the staff knew one of the comics and were like very excited about doing the show and very on board, which is always nice. Some places, usually with Don't Tell, they're pretty on board, but some places, whether it's Don't Tell or other shows, the venue can be kind of like skeptical or just, I don't know, maybe the owner sets it up, but then the owner's not there and it's just some like 22-year-old who doesn't want to deal with anything and they don't want to be working there or whatever the case is. But all the employees there were super nice. Before the show, I hopped on a couple bikes to like, one of the employees was like showing me around. He had me hop on these bikes and I was like, it's funny when you're on something, you're like, I don't think I'm manly enough to handle a motorcycle. I don't like saying that out loud, but you get on one of those things and you go, I don't like this. I don't think I have the forearm strength to operate a motorcycle. And it's like, look, I don't lift a lot of weights, but I do feel like I can handle myself as a grown adult male. But those motorcycles feel like they would have tested my resolve and strength. So, I mean, honestly, even the jackets. I didn't try the jacket on, but I looked at them and I was like, I don't know if I can handle wearing a jacket. I just don't know. Like it, when you see some fashion or something where you're like, that looks cool, but if I put it on, I feel like I would walk down the street and just one out of two people would look at me and go, "You you shouldn't be wearing that. You're living a lie. That's not who you are. Put that jacket back. Go grab a Walmart hoodie. That is more in your lane." But anyways, so we do the show, and so the show's, it's a fun show. I go up, and then another out of town comic goes up, and it was all this weekend was kind of chaotic. There was a bunch of out of towners on the shows, and it was a bunch of like they were bouncing around doing a bunch of spots. So it was kind of like playing a little bit of chess, like where how does the lineup gonna work? Who needs to go first? Who needs to go last? When do we need to start? All this and that. So I go up. The next comic goes up, and he's got to go immediately after that. So he heads out. Another comic comes in from another show. He goes up next. And then it's like, is this other comic going to make it? And she makes it like last second. And she's an out-of-towner. And this is it's very funny because it's the first time maybe ever that I've blanked on somebody's name. But not only that, I blanked on their name, and then I remembered it, and then I said it wrong. So I was like, it bothers me too, because I take a lot of pride in being as professional as possible in general. But when it comes to hosting, it's like, I want to be a good host. I want to get the crowd going. I want to be charismatic. I want to smile. I want them to feel comfortable. I want to do the jokes, get them going for the next comic. I want every in-between thing when I go up and go, hey, keep it going for so-and-so. Ah, that was awesome. All right, this next comic, I want to say the credits correctly. I don't want to flub words. And certainly I don't want to say people's names wrong. Now, look, at the end of the day, it's whatever. It'll happen. But I try to just to be the best you can. And I think I think you guys get it. If we're all trying to be self-critical, whether it's stand-up or like if you've ever given a presentation or whatever. Like if you're doing a science presentation and you say photosynthesis or whatever, you say some dumb science word that you haven't seen before. If you say it incorrectly, it's like, I mean, I wasn't quite sure how to pronounce it. It's my first time seeing it. So like, I said it wrong. But also you're like, you know what? If I was talking about the Homo sapien and we had like a caveman in the room and I was like, Homo sapien, dude. You know what? I bet that caveman would be a little like, hey man, you messed it up. It's a little, I feel a little way about it. And so I flubbed. Basically what happened is I all right, keep it going for the former comic. This next comic, visiting from New York. You guys are going to love her. Everyone keep it going for, and I literally blanked and I said, and I took like a beat. It was like a second of me going, just like total brain fart. And then I said her first name, and then I messed up her last name, and she came on stage and immediately made fun of me for it, and it was fine. She got a good laugh on it. But I felt, I was like pretty in my head about it. I was like, oh, she hates me. I'm an idiot. Oh my goodness. You think you're a good host and you can't remember somebody's name? You're so dumb. But what can you do? That's what happens sometimes. Anyways, that was Friday. Friday was a fun show. Saturday, boy, I got some stuff to say about Saturday. Saturday was a interesting show. So Saturday, another Don't Tell show. Hosting. It was at a fitness studio. And part of me thought like, okay, it was like 0 degrees. It had snowed Friday night into Saturday. The roads are terrible. I'm thinking like, show might get canceled. Well, boy, did it not get canceled. And it's funny because last time it snowed kind of badly Actually, the Don't Tell show that was happening was at the same venue, funny enough, this fitness studio. But I thought like, oh, it might get canceled. Last time it sold out. This time, snow and like polar vortex, super cold temperatures also sold out. So 80 some people in this place. So I get there, I set up, you know, comics come in. Also, I won't go into the details of it, but a bunch of comics bouncing around too. And it was another game of like, it was like chess and checkers and juggling. And I was like, my brain doesn't work. I can't pronounce names. How do you think I can do a list of people? It's changing. No, that was fine, but that was part of it. And so I set up, check everybody in. We start the show, and have a pretty good host set. And the next comic comes up. I mean, it was a great show. The crowd was great. But about halfway through the show, so actually I'll take a step back because this is the process I went through. We're about halfway through the show. I have to go pee. I go to the bathroom, go to the men's bathroom, pee in the urinal, and as I'm peeing, or as I'm like finishing peeing, somebody walks out of, there's like toilets where you can like shut the door behind you, kind of, or to the side of the urinal. And so I'm finishing up at the urinal, and somebody walks out behind me out of one of the stalls. And I like, as I'm turning around to go to wash my hands, I see it's a woman. And I was like, what? And I was like, okay. So I wash my hands and I walk out, and I see the woman walking into the showroom. Because at first I was like, I think it's a woman, but like I'm not sure. And then I'm like, oh, that is a woman. That's weird. And so I'm standing in the back of the room, and like 3 minutes later, this dude comes walking up with that same girl right behind him. And I didn't connect the two. I didn't know this. I didn't add it up until later. But this guy comes, he's walking out, and I'm standing in the back corner of the room. He's exiting, and he goes, hey, man, me and my girlfriend, we're going to head out. Just a heads up, she just threw up. She just threw up on the floor. We're going to get out of here, but just wanted to give you a heads up, not like leave you hanging or kind of wonder what happened. And he just left. And I was like, yo, that's like you're insane. You're the dumbest person I've ever met. Hey, man, I didn't want to leave you hanging, but I'm going to leave you hanging. You're going to have to clean up my girlfriend's puke. And so he's telling me this, and I'm looking, and his girlfriend is like stumbling behind him, holding her mouth like she's about to puke again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, get out of here. So they walk through into the lobby area, and then there's a trash can there, and she just like keels over and starts throwing up in that. And I was like, oh my gosh, dude. So now in my mind, I'm like, okay, she puked in the middle of the crowd. I'm looking around to be like, I wasn't sure where they were seated. I was looking around at the crowd to be like, are people like stirring? Are they looking, are they uncomfortable? How much was it? Does it stink? Like, is this going to ruin the show? And I didn't, it's one of those where you have to like, you kind of have to weigh your options. I've never had to deal with this before, where you're like, okay, do I go to try to clean it up now? Do I say anything during the show? Like, in between the comics to be like, hey, just a heads up, there's puke out there somewhere. Don't step on it if you're getting up for the bathroom. I ultimately weighed the options and decided to not mention it during the show. I was keeping a close eye on it in the area that it happened to see if people were like looking at it, or, if there was disruption. Fortunately, there wasn't. So it was like, it happened, but it was best case scenario for like, it happened, but it wasn't on, or, like there was space around it. There weren't people around. It wasn't bothering the people. And then the show just went on, and the show was great. And then we finished up, and I went up and was like, thanks so much for coming out to the show. A couple quick things before you get out of here. Went through a couple things about like emails that they'll get and throwing away their trash. And I was like, and then, another very important thing, someone threw up in the crowd. So when you're getting up to leave, please don't step on that. And, and some lady, that was kind of like the final thing I was going to say before being like, all right, good night. And then some lady just yelled out in the crowd. She goes, uh, don't, I think she said, don't sign the lease. And I said, I'm not quite sure what you just said, but that's the end of the show. Thanks so much. Let's try to get one last heckle in. 5 seconds of fame. But anyways, this lady had thrown up in the crowd, and that lady was the same lady that had come out of the men's bathroom, and she had thrown up all in the men's bathroom too. And I didn't know. I was just like, oh, maybe like this person didn't see the men sign, but then it all made sense. I was like, oh, this lady is hammered and has drank way too much, and she just walked into the men's bathroom, threw up in there, and then threw up in the showroom. But that was very annoying. So stayed late to kind of help. I felt so bad for the venue owner having to deal with that, but I stayed late to deal with that. It was an interesting night, but fortunately, a very fun show. Other than that part, we're kind of running over time here, but I do want to talk about on the topic of public vomiting. I was, excuse me, I was trying to think before I sat down here, like, have I ever thrown up in like an inappropriate public space? And I couldn't think of any. Like even as a kid where you eat too much candy or you're at a sleepover, I couldn't think of a time where I just like threw up all over the dining room table or something where you're like, oh, this is a nightmare. The only things that I could think of, and it wasn't like inappropriate or like wasn't even that uncomfortable. I guess it's just the most uncomfortable locations that I could remember throwing up was one. I was running a 5K race, and it was at the very end of the race. And just for context, when I was in like 8th grade, my family and we would do a decent amount of 5Ks. So you do these 5Ks and you'd see some of the same kids doing the same thing. So there was basically this one 5K I'm running, and I'm at the very end of the race. There's probably like 100 yards, a couple hundred yards left. And behind me, I see a kid running up, getting close to passing me. And in the previous race that we had run earlier in that summer, he had like just crushed me. I don't know who this kid was. I just knew that like he beat me last time. I don't want him to beat me again. So I started sprinting as fast as I can. And I barely beat him. Fortunately, I beat him, but I pushed my body like beyond its limit, I guess. And so we're in this like narrow corridor where like the finish of the race is, and other people are like coming in, and I just like throw up on the pavement. And I still remember it was so awkward because I throw up, and this kid that I like was like, I have to beat him. He just started patting me on the back. He was just like a really nice dude that I was like in my head, like, I cannot let him win. And then I threw up in front of him, and then he patted me on the back, and I was like, I think he did win again. He got the better of me both races. He beat me time-wise in the first race, and then he beat me in the mental psychology of the second race. But that was in like middle school, high school. And then I remember this was one of the most uncomfortable, like where you're sick and just in a space that you're not comfortable with. But when I was in the Dominican Republic, I don't know if it was food or what, but I got really sick the day before I was flying back to Virginia. And I'm staying in a hostel. And I think I had eaten this food. I don't know. I'm in this hostel. So it's in a hostel. I'm already in a bedroom with 8 people. So you're not in like a private space. And then all the bathrooms are shared. And I'm sick all night long. So I'm like laying. Oh, dude, it was the worst. I was like laying on this tile, just basically like just continually throwing up. And it's a shared bathroom. So I'm like taking up the space, but also I'm like dying. I thought I was dying for real. I was like, I'm in bad shape. So I'm laying on the tile, and it stunk because for some reason it was like a weird setup. It was not like a flat tile and then just a toilet in there like a regular bathroom. There was like little step ups to the toilet. So there's like 2 step ups. So if you're laying by the toilet, it's like you're laying on this block that's not big enough for your body. And then to throw up, you had to kind of go up on this little mini block that only had enough room basically for a man to like put his feet on to then pee into the toilet. And it's also, again, a shared hostel. So like the tile is like wet. And, oh gosh. And I'm just like, I'm dying and I'm laying in other people's urine. And I just, oh man, that was tough. And then the next morning, I had to go to the airport, flew back Spirit Airlines. And I still remember that's the only time I made a number 2 on a plane. You know what? I don't really like, if I could take it back, I wouldn't say made a number 2, but that's the only time I went poo-poo on a plane. And the funny part is, hadn't even taken off yet. Just got on the plane, hadn't taken off, and I was like, I'm sick. I'll be back. And honestly, that was one of the rougher. Traveling in general while you're sick is the worst. Traveling internationally, where you're like going through an airport where people are speaking different languages and you're like, I think I'm dying. It's not ideal. But those are 2 places I remember going through it in the sense of throwing up. But shows interesting this week. They were fun. I worked on some new jokes and still working on some new jokes, going through colonoscopy, trying to tell that story, locked in the bathroom, trying to work that out. A couple others that I'm working on that I'll keep you updated on. Made a little progress on The Fall of Hyperion, the book I'm reading, which is the sequel to Hyperion. And it's been good so far. And I'm excited to continue reading. But you know what? I think that's where I'm going to end it. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope you guys are not cold out there. I don't know where the polar vortex has hit. But if it hit you, let me know. Leave a comment. Also, if anybody has made it this far, please leave a comment and let me know. I have a question and would like to hear your input. I'm thinking about potentially doing kind of bonus podcasts, not like your typical, hey, here's just kind of what's going on, but kind of maybe in between bonus podcast about just like tips and tricks for comedy stuff. Not tricks, but like tips and helpful pieces of advice, I guess. The one thing I was thinking about is maybe just doing like a podcast on hosting and kind of the things that I've learned from hosting, like hundreds of shows and what I've learned and what's made me better and what's been helpful and kind of the do's and don'ts and scenarios you may find yourself in and that stuff. And I've kind of written an outline and I would love to do that. I also am skeptical because I don't want to come off as like this know-it-all like type thing. I think it could be helpful. I've learned a lot and it's, I think, useful information, but I also don't want it to come off as, just like know-it-all or pretentious or anything like that. So question for you, if that would be helpful, whether it's hosting tips or just more inside baseball with comedy stuff, if that would be interesting to you, let me know. Would love to get your feedback on that and see if that's something that I should do. But other than that, thank you guys so much for listening. Appreciate you tuning in this week, and I'll see you guys again next week.